Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for the Wot Supp podcast. With your host, Stu OG Industry Shannon and Will Warren Davey, new school formulator extraordinaire. We're talking all things supplements with insiders, athletes, experts, and more. So sit back, relax, and prepare to find out what's up.
Good morning and welcome to another installation of the Wot Supp podcast. Today we have my usual co-host Stu, Shannon, the OG, as well as the OOG, Grant Mayo himself, the founder of Nutrition Warehouse. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Grant.
It's a pleasure, Will. Pleasure, Stu. Thanks for having me on. It's a great honour to be here. Very chuffed that you guys invited me on. And yeah, it's great to be speaking with you guys this morning about Nutrition Warehouse, guys.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean, we've been trying to get you on since, it must have been probably around March when all the COVID stuff happened, when I think we first invited you on. But I know you're a busy man, but we've finally got you, so definitely excited to crack into things, Grant. How's everything been going with you guys with all the COVID stuff? Have you guys copped much flack from that, or?
Look, I think the whole world has, Stu, obviously when it first hit back in February, March, I think everyone was like, what the hell's going on? And everyone was unsure and, what's going to come of this virus? We were going to cark it, is the world doomed? Is it time to pack up and go home? So I think there was a lot of concern worldwide, and especially for myself, my family and close friends were all like, and work colleagues were like, what's going on, From a business perspective, yeah, definitely we're sitting in the boardroom with a few hard days of like, what do we actually do to protect, obviously, firstly, our team members and obviously our customers at hand, what do we actually do? Do we shut down? Do we keep open? And obviously, as the days and weeks went on, that it was clear that something was going on with COVID and fairly lethal. Now, I guess I'll probably change my tune a little bit. But I think initially it has impacted Nutrition Warehouse initially. But surprisingly, the first 2 or 3 months we were like doomsday and, we were crying, I think it's all over. And then all of a sudden, so, to be honest, revenue and sales have spiked. Yep. And I probably attribute that to, people Australia-wide are probably more thinking about their health more than ever now with COVID, and obviously how it attacks the central nervous system. Obviously, vitamins, minerals, and training and health and fitness is probably paramount to people's minds now. And if it's not, it should be.
100%. Well, I think it's an interesting point that you made there, where you had your boardroom meeting and sit down for, I guess, a crisis meeting. And I'm sure you've had a lot of those sort of meetings over the years. I mean, you've been in this game for, I guess, longer than almost everyone, as far as I can think of. Let's rewind right back to the very start. Let's talk Nutrition Warehouse. Let's get the Nutrition Warehouse story from way back. Where did it begin? Where did the concept start, Grant?
Yeah, sure. Look, back in the heyday, back in my youth glory days, I was believe it or not, I was a bodybuilder. So I was around 21 and a few mates said we should go to the gym, buff up a bit. And I'm like, yeah. At the time I was 21, 50 kilo, 5'7". I was a real weakling. And I ended up going to the gym with the boys. And, after a few months, they bailed. And I thought, actually, I don't mind this. It gives me a bit of purpose and I'm focused and I love pushing the weights around. My body was changing. And I met a few guys in the gym that took me under their wing. And they're, after a year or two, they're like, you should compete. And I'm like, I'm not going to be in the gym at all, let alone competing. I'm going to go up stage in that little bit of underwear and like flex my muscles. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not me. But obviously, history tells us that I did do that. And in 93, after 2.5 years of training, I jumped on stage and I was fortunate enough to win under 70s novice IFBB. And I guess that really, from probably not a very confident kid back then, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. What else can I do in this bodybuilding thing? And it gave me something to focus on, something to drive and start goal setting. So I set my sights on next year and the year after, and I was fortunate enough to win comps like the, I kept runner up in the IFBB. So thanks, Tony Doherty, love you. second and third in the IFBB Nationals for about 3 or 4 years. And then a friend of mine, Shane Stratton, who was Mr. Universe, said, you should come to NABBA, like, even if you win the IFBB, you just get a trophy and go home. So, and that was sort of a epiphany. Went, hey, I wouldn't mind traveling the world. I've never been anywhere. So I joined NABBA, and in '97 was my first time. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to win everything that NABBA threw at me, including the world title over in Greece. So I remember winning the Nationals in Greece back in '97. And they said, here's your plane ticket to Greece, accommodation, airfares paid for. And I'm like, what the hell? I haven't even got a passport. So within a few short weeks, I had to do that process on a plane. And here I am, eating egg whites and drinking gallons of water on a jumbo jet to the other side of the world. So it's a real experience. And look, yeah, I remember with Bill Bryson sitting on that plane, and Bill was a great competitive bodybuilder. And we're like, if we just get top 6, because they do the routines, now would be blown away by top 6. And obviously, I think Bill got 4th or 3rd, and I'm still in the lineup. And come down to me and a German man, and we held hands like little girly men do, and they
bit of camaraderie.
They said some German name, and I went, yeah, that's not my name, or is it? Because they spoke in German. In Greece or whatever language I was speaking. And then, come on, Mayo, and I won. I think I'm still shell shocked today. It was a massive, lineup, and yeah, I was proud to win a world title. And I think that sort of ticked the boxes for me in bodybuilding. And it was great to win, but sometimes I felt like I won too early. I didn't push hard enough. I could have been better, but. Hey,
well, if anyone who doesn't know that Grant was a bodybuilder, if you do have him on your socials, jump on there, and if you kind of scroll a few profile pictures back or a few photos back, you'll see some photos of Grant in his heyday, and I'll tell you what, there's a physique there that would have been impressive in today's lineups as well. So I guess he's understating things a little bit with how big, muscular, and ripped he actually was. So check that out if you get a chance, guys.
No, thanks, Stu. Appreciate that.
Who would have thought? It's funnily though, isn't it, mate? Like who would have, when you cross paths with Tony back in the IFBB days, way back at the beginning, and then who would have thought you'd brush with him in a business sense again many years on? I was fortunate enough to obviously work for yourself, Grant. We had a great old time at those Arnold Expos. They were unreal. And seeing who did you? I bet you couldn't have ever pictured that when you cross paths with Tony again, it would be in a business sense, having probably the biggest supplement empire in Australia at his expo for that festival. That'd be an absolute, you have to pinch.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's been a massive journey, from the bodybuilding all the way through to today. And look, and I guess I look back now as an older, more mature guy, and and I look back and go, I'm glad that I actually had that attitude and I didn't treat anyone with disrespect, because it would have been hard to, it would have been easy back in those days to go to the IFBB and say, whatever, I should have won, blah, blah, blah. In the day, I didn't win, you know what I mean? And someone else won, and probably deservingly so. Had I gone the other route, that it could have ended badly, you know what I mean? So I think a little tip for everyone, don't burn your bridges, be nice to everyone. You never know what's coming around the corner.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the industry kind of does have this, this kind of full circle motion to it, doesn't it? Where, someone who is the CEO of this company one day is the head of this distribution company the next day, and then that they're the brand owner the next day. And so you really do want to kind of maintain these relationships, because you don't know at what capacity you're going to be dealing with people sort of 5 years into the future, or 10 years, or whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
That's a great business lesson, I think, in particular. It often is cyclical, and you don't know who you'll pass on the way up or down, and how long in between. So that's a good example of some of the things we're trying to get for our listeners, because a lot of them, Grant, are business owners. A lot of them are supplement store owners. They'll be sales reps in this industry. Fitness lovers, athletes. We're quite fortunate, but a lot of them are very business minded. And I think things that I've been asked a lot is people when they heard that we're interviewing yourself, was just they really wanted me just to pick, get down to the weeds on what was the mindset around, starting this empire, and what are some of the things you've done to get it where it is, because it's the growth is huge. So I guess that's where a lot of people have been really picking at me, and Stu's the same. We've had a lot of messages from people saying, make sure you pick Grant's brain on the business side, because that'd be very valuable for us to share, I think.
So basically, they want the secret recipe, Grant. Every small supplement store owner wants to know how to get to 100 stores.
Oh man, so do I. Was there a recipe somewhere? Look, honestly, there is no recipe. There is no rule of thumb. There is no, obviously, there's some standards you have to adhere to along the way, and obviously making great decisions. But look, I'll use analogy of bodybuilding. And I mean, what did I do to become a world champion bodybuilder? Well, just like any great athlete, I wake up every morning, I done my cardio, I prepared my meals, I trained my ass off, I read, I learned from those around me. Obviously, back in my day, there was no internet, so I was buying the magazines, talking to Lee Priest when I saw him in the gym, and he just ripped me off about my calves all the time. So
he still trains at my local gym. He'd do the same thing, don't worry.
Yeah. So I was just trying to get value out of everyone I could as I was bodybuilding, and trying to learn from whether it was someone with great shoulders or good calves, or just watching people, listening to the videos you could buy back then of Sean Ray, Lita Brada, Dorian Yates, all those heroes of mine when I grew up. And obviously the analogy of bodybuilding, you get it, you cook the meals, you train, you take the right supplements, you eat the right food, you go to bed at the right time, you're not out partying, and you're learning, training, and you're doing it consistently day after day after day. It's like building, doing the reps, or I like to use the analogy of building a brick wall also. Each day I'm going to the gym, I know what the goal is I'm going after, and I'm putting a brick on the wall. Sometimes if I get injured or I don't eat the right meals, I take a few bricks off. So it's sort of like this motion, as long as it's going off in the right direction. And look, the nutrition warehouse or any business, I think, is not dissimilar from that. You really are. Firstly, I would say that you've got to find something that you love. Now, being an ex-bodybuilder, supplements was, an easy thing for me. I've taken supplements for years. I was a sales rep for AST Science, like 25 years ago, with Joe in City Health Foods there. Yeah. Wow. So, so I've been in the industry a long time, but it's just adding that value each time. So each time you're building the wall, you want to make sure that. No, I've lost my train of thought now. Mentioned Joe. My mind went to Joe.
Something I really find interesting about Nutrition Warehouse and your business model is that it's totally different to what everyone. Well, it was a totally new concept in nutrition retail, I guess, because you went for this warehouse concept, and I think that you're really the only one who's done it well, where it's sustainable and it works. Like before that, I guess most supplement stores were either, one wall in a chemist, in a pharmacy somewhere, or a little tiny compact sort of shop, on a busy street. But you went for something radically different. Where did this come from? Or is that how Nutrition Warehouse started, or did it start smaller than that?
Yeah. Look, so basically I had another startup, back in 2002, another supplement retailer, which I co-founded. And obviously when I started that business, I had no idea what the hell I was doing, and we had that one wall, and, we had the cash box, but I guess we were probably the pioneers of that industry. There was, 80th Street around, and there was, what else was around? Probably 2 or 3 supplement stores in Australia at that time. Maybe more, but there wasn't very many. So after the bodybuilding, obviously I had an idea to start a supplement store. So I co-founded that with a friend. And after a few years, we parted ways because I believed that business model wasn't my vision. It wasn't how I perceived that the future was going to be. Obviously as a business owner or trying to think of something to do or have an idea, you've got to always try and think in the future how you perceive or think it could be. Right or wrong, you've still got to make that call. So obviously I looked at America and went, well, over there, they're bigger stores. It's more mainstream. And normally what happens in America slowly comes this way. So after I left that other business, I had a bit of cash to play around with. And I sat down and just worked out a business plan, And when I say business plan, I didn't write there a whole PDF or what's going to happen. It was probably like on an A4 with business names, business ideas, how I want it to look, the colors. A lot of it was in my head. But what I really did want to see was something different to what was already out there. The Ada Streets, the ASNs of the time, and what was the other one? Well, and Springfield, Supplement Den.
Oh yeah.
The Supplement Den. I mean, they were kings, back in the days. Everyone was driving from the Gold Coast to Ada Street to get there, spend $500 on the weekend for their subs. I'm like, yeah, that's not cool. I'm like, come to my shop, So look, the idea just come from to have more of a wow factor, you know what I mean? So how can I compete against current day supplement stores and for people just walking and go, wow. So a little 80 square meter store was not going to wow anybody, you know what I mean? And being an ex-bodybuilder, I suppose what makes people go wow on the bodybuilding stage, someone with shoulders this big and back this big and, people just go, wow, So I just use that analogy again from bodybuilding. Went, okay, well, the stores need to be big. They need to have all the biggest brands. They need to have a price point that is fair to, to the consumer and to the business. And I've always loved red, black and white, like they've always been my favorite colors. So yeah, I mean, and look, when I initially started in Underwood, which was the first store in 2008, it wasn't a big store because I guess still I was like, I have this vision, but I don't want to go spend an enormous amount of cash on rent and outlay a lot of cash. Let's still start with the 80 square meter store and actually see if the brand works.
Yep.
And look, there was days in those early days. So I've just come from a successful business, sold that to here. There was days I stood there and no one come in, like no one. And I'd be like, oh shit. But look, I'd done a lot of guerrilla marketing back then. So I would, walk past, and Supplement Den at the time was only like 2 kilometers away. So, which stirred up a lot of issues. So as soon as I started Nutrition Warehouse, the issues began in terms of I opened up very close to Supplement Den. Now, why did I do that? People said, why did you do that? Well, I had an exclusion zone from my previous company of 50 kilometers. So I drove 50 kilometers towards Brisbane and went, this is the spot. And then a few sales reps who are still in the business said, you can't open here. It's right next to Supplement Den. And I'm like, well, just like bodybuilding, if I'm going to jump on stage, I want to walk away. Now, if I'm sitting here now going, I won a world title, but I didn't stand next to the best, I know deep inside whether that I really want it or not. I want to sit there going, hey, I'm proud of my title, which I am. And hey, if this business model is going to work, I might as well go up against the best. And if I win, I win. If I don't, then I walk away. But it did work. A lot of suppliers didn't supply me at first. So a bit like, sorry, Supplement Den's too big of a fish for us, and you're just starting all over again. And it's probably not going to work, Grant. And I was like, okay. I'll remember that.
Yeah. Fast forward 20 years,
So yeah, the first store in Underwood. And look, after about 4 months, we've done a big guerrilla marketing campaign, dropping leaflets around Supplement Den and stuff like that, and at Ada Street. So I'd finish work at 5:36 at night, then drive my car to the car parks of all the gyms, all the closed supplement stores, and drop DL flyers. Don't do that to my shops, guys.
Isn't that remarkable? That's something I think that we could touch on. I think because you've seen the evolution of particularly the marketing sector of the fitness industry evolve so rapidly and over a sustained period too. I think what are some of, when you said literally going from the days of putting DL flyers on car windows at gyms in person versus now obviously where, people go deep into the weeds in SEOs and boosted Instagram campaigns. And what have you found was in that sort of era, was that literally what you guys had to build the brand? Was it all on foot in person? Obviously there wasn't social media. Was that some of the more effective things that you had to grow the business back when it started?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you said, Will, there was no social back then. Well, there might have been 2008. No, there wasn't, was there? No social
No.
media.
Not really, not here in
No.
Australia anyway. I think
No,
Facebook was only
pre-Facebook.
just starting.
It's just about 209, I think it was. So
Yeah.
yeah, look, it was just ground level roots. What can you do from a store level to drag people into the store and get to know you're actually there? So obviously, having a decent location is obviously key, because and building that brand is DL flyers, going to gyms, working with local football clubs, communities, personal trainers, and just building rapport with the local community and giving excellent customer service. I mean, we've prided ourselves on day one, and I'm very. It's been a lot harder as the company's grown, but definitely, pride ourselves on the customer service, giving the customers the range, the look, the feel, and the expertise that behind the counter. And we've tried to do that from day one. But it's just those little things, adding those little bricks. How can we? And it wasn't like we sat there and you got to remember when I first started, for the first 4 years, like I was a jack of all trades, master of none. So I essentially was by myself for the first 6 months. I had friends help me set up the store. I was working tremendous hours to get this off the ground. I was the bookkeeper. I don't even know to this day how I was a bookkeeper, but I was. I had an e-commerce site, which I helped add all the products to, which was a tremendous effort. And that was months prior to starting. So I had an e-commerce site to start with back in 2008. So I was doing the web orders, packing those behind a little curtain in the store. I'd be like, customer come in, I'd be like, I'll be with you in a minute.
So it sounds a little bit like my operation down here, Grant. Sounds like where I'm at.
That's real though, right? That's awesome. That's genuinely, like, you have to do it. You have to do all of it at the start, right? Like, I think that's where it gets so glorified now. I had a friend message me recently saying, he was starting a company. He's like, mate, this is getting really hard. He's like, this is meant to be easy. Like everyone else around you see killing it. He walked in thinking it would be easy. And I think there's a bit of a perception now that it's, that when you start, you'll have someone in there you'll have people packing orders for you, or you'll have a bookkeeper, but all these things take, years of turnover to try and fund these positions. And it's not as easy as people make it out to. That's awesome that even people can like see that from Australian your size started with you packing your orders, being your own bookkeeper, which you self-confess might not be your strength, but you have to do it all. That's really valuable, I think, people to hear, man. Like,
yeah. So
Grant,
I think go on.
I was just going to say, I was interested to just backtrack a little bit. You said that as the brand's grown, it's gotten harder and harder for you to, I guess, manage that level of customer service. And I've always been really curious as to how you do that and how you instill that within the culture of your company. When there is so many staff that you have now and so many people in different locations, like how do you manage keeping them at that level of customer service that you expect?
Yeah, definitely. Look, in the early days, it was quite easy. You had 10 stores, and obviously I would be around all those stores. I'd have close relationships with the managers and the area managers. So we have a structure of basically support office, supporting all the stores, area managers supporting 10 stores, managers supporting the staff below them, and obviously a great framework behind the scenes of, code of conduct and how to run a nutrition warehouse store. So in the early days, we had nothing of that. It was really just me running the culture, and we're all going out for beers and going to expos and traveling together. So it was easy to get buy-in from everybody, because we're all mates and we're all friends. And that really was the cornerstone of the growth of Nutrition Warehouse, because, we started in Queensland, which was quite easy. But when we went, hey, let's go to New South Wales, that's where we're going to next. How am I going to start bring that planet in New South Wales with the same culture, the same values, same beliefs from the team members? Well, you take one of your best guys and you go, hey, you should go to New South Wales and start Nutrition Warehouse, New South Wales, put a little carrot in front of him, and look, and that was Dean McKillop, God love him, and he'd done a wonderful job, and met his wife down there. So thanks, Dean. You can thank me later, mate. It's all right. Look, if it wasn't for people like Dean, and there's various others, nearly every state, that's what we did to get the initial growth in a brand new area. So hand-picked, and really they put their hand up. They wanted to go help and start, which I'm really proud of them for doing that, and really gracious, because it really did help the business grow a lot faster. And we had trust in someone, now, like, I guess, passing the baton down to that state. So look, early days, quite easy. That's how we grew. Now we're at 75 stores plus, 350 team members. So yeah, now it's a huge operation, and basically we're very heavily reliant on the area managers and the managers to instill that culture and drive.
Yeah.
There's a fair bit of training in the background, and obviously, how we expect people to act and so forth, which I think is key for any business. It'd be a lot easier if we were just doing one warehouse together, like the old days, or something. I think that when people say, hey, culture is important, every company should have great culture. Well, that's one of the hardest things to do, I believe, because in theory, you can have subcultures. You can have a culture, from the warehouse. We're in the same warehouse, in support office to the warehouse, you know what I mean? And from this shop to this shop. And they change slightly depending on the personality of the area manager and the manager themselves. But, as a core, as long as it stays pretty stable. And look, nothing's perfect, I don't think in any business. I think if you went to some of the biggest brands in the world, you'd still find some core issues there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which part of the operation did you find the hardest to scale? I think it grew quite rapidly, and there's always growing pains trying to get that infrastructure to support that. Like having quite a tall management structure, for example, would have been quite costly to afford in the first place, having your APCs and then your managers and what have you. What were some of the sort of the growing pains that you encountered going from your first initial store to 10 to 20 to 80? What were some of the biggest obstacles trying to endure that growth?
Oh, there was a lot. and there still is today. Just to get to this scale, we're definitely not perfect and still got a lot to learn. But look, definitely the biggest is finding the right team members. Definitely, and I always try and instill to the team. Basically, I call it on the bus and off the bus, and it's obviously I didn't make that up myself. It's from the book Good to Great, which is about having building a company from good to great. Self-explanatory, really, but it's a good book. So we should go read it. And they talk about in there that if you shut down tomorrow and wanted to start a new business, who would you put on the bus, and who would you say, sorry, you're not invited on the bus? Get off the bus. Now, you should be doing that daily as you walk around. And if you wouldn't take that person with you to your next venture, then you should be finding a way to help them kindly move on, because they don't suit your brand, your culture, your business for what reason. So we're pretty big on making sure that we have a good cultural fit within Nutrition Warehouse, because that's very important for any brand to move forward, because that's when the cracks will start appearing. If you've got all these people that aren't aligned, and then in a bigger company that will be easier to realize who those people are.
I have something that I've been wanting to ask you, Grant, is the industry is an ever evolving beast. Like, I guess before there was Nutrition Warehouse, and before you had, you guys are big on price point and stuff like that. And probably some of the, I guess the driving down of the price of supplements and becoming more affordable for the retailer is thanks to guys like yourselves. Because I remember when I first was buying supplements, before Nutrition Warehouse, before any of this stuff. And I remember the first pre-workout to come out that I was aware of in Australia was NO Explode by BSN. And I was paying $119.95 a tub for this stuff at the time. And, you know, obviously that's one change that's happened, but I'm sure there's been many, many, many changes. And obviously we're coming into a huge change in the industry at the moment. Does your formula change as the industry changes for your business, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah, and I remember the days where No Explode was at least $99, $100 for a pre-workout.
Well, see, we're a bit more regional down in Wollongong. You know, we're not right in the middle of Sydney, so there's probably only one store that stocked it. So you got a monopoly down here, you know.
Yeah, look, there's been a wealth of changes over the years. You know, obviously, price points have come down, which is great for the end consumer. A ton of new brands. You know, back in the early days, it was all American brands. You know, definitely everyone was fixated on American, US brands. Where today, Australian brands are taking over in terms of quality and brand equity and just the way they present themselves. So yeah, and obviously, you know, where they source the proteins from is important too. So yeah, definitely brands have switched. Now it's Australia is probably more prominent than US, which is great to see for Australian consumers. Yeah, obviously a lot of regulatory issues along the way that continue to raise an ugly head, which is an often constant for us. It's much like the skincare industry. You know, you go start the skincare, they have a lot of TGA issues as well. So we're not alone. What else have I seen? I've seen a lot of competitors come and go, like a lot of big brands like A1 supplements and so forth, or other brands that should have dominated, didn't dominate, and you know, we have and taken the lead. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of brands that in the early days I was like, oh man, how are we going to catch these guys, or you know, how are we going to be better, or you know, and then I think it comes back to an analogy, you know, into the gym every day, putting the brick on the wall, keep doing it. So I guess I'm a big advocate of do it now and get rewarded later. You know, many people who know me would know that I put my head down and bum up for many years before I sort of started relaxing a little bit. You know what I mean? So there's that, and yeah, I think we're very consistent in our approach to, you know, we're taking big holidays and stuff like that. We're just let's get this done. You know,
where do you see the industry heading now? Then, like, obviously we've come from a place where, you know, we had these hugely expensive US brands. We've had all these Australian brands come, and there's still some scattered US brands in the Australian space. Where are we heading now in the future? Are we going to see no more international brands after these new regulatory changes, or what's your, I guess, where do you see it going?
Look, if I could look into the future, I would say that everything's going to be okay. I think that US brands will still come here. Obviously, formulations will have to change. Will they be as good? I think so. I think that this industry is still pioneering, and there's always ways to have great products on the shelves. I mean, we just look at DMAA where we went, oh no, the world's ending. And realistically, what came out of that? Better products. So I think, again, we'll be surprised what comes out in the next 6 months, and we'll probably go, these are better products.
It does continually do that, doesn't it? Every time they ban something pops up, you know, and usually 1 to 2 months later, and it's an equally, if not more, impressive ingredient to replace it, or like DNAA to DMHA to Dynamine to now whatever comes next after Dynamine. It's it is a rapidly evolving, but pioneering is the fun part of their industry. But you mentioned a really interesting part there where you say consistency, and just like in the bodybuilding game, like it's just. Would you contribute the reason that you've stuck around so long in business, and you've said some of those big competitors early on who have folded that should have done well? You said, would you say that's like? Do you think that's the main reason you outlasted them per se? Do you think it was just consistently doing good work consistently rather than doing big outlays or big? You know, what do you think put you in the spot you are now versus the ones that you think should have, you know, triumphed?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, look, I can't look into them. I can see from the outside, but I would say that some bigger brands just obviously may not have had the vision or the strategy. I mean, obviously each year we sit down and strategize where we're heading, where we're going to go. I think it like a big ship, and I'm driving it, and I try not to crash into too many rocks or icebergs, but sometimes I do. And some people just keep going with go to work each day, and there's, the leaders should be really focusing on where that ship's pointing and where it's going. So we've definitely done that year after year for many years. So I can't really, it's hard for me to speak from their perspective, but I would say we just outworked everybody. You know what I mean? Maybe that's tooting our own horn, but we had a great team. And, and I always like to add too, like, I'm the founder. Yes, I'm the CEO. I'm the leader, but, we have a leadership team there. We have a lot of great team members, and they're all responsible for where we are today. This is not a one-man show. It's a 350-man show, and they're all responsible for where we are right now. Because I tell you what, my job's changed a lot over the years and continues to change. And sometimes it goes in a direction I don't like. So I'm like, I'll go that way and I'll hire someone to do something I'm not very good at or don't have a good skill set at. But they're very responsible for our achievements as well. So yeah, I'd just like to thank all the team members while I can.
And I'm sure a lot of them are going to be listening to this episode too, so it's probably a good opportunity to do that. Did you have something to say there, Will? Sorry.
I think that's a really interesting one. I hear this a lot because a lot of our listeners are, like I said before, a lot of them are sole traders. A lot of them have startups, small businesses where we've got personal training studios, supplement store owners. These guys are doing exactly like you said when you started, just like we still are in a lot of ways, doing everything yourself, and it's a very personal thing. These things we've started are they're a lot more personal than it might look from the outside. It's not just numbers a lot of the time when you do all of it. So how did you go when you slowly put people in places that to delegate it? Did you struggle to let go of your baby as it grew? Was that, because for me, I find it really difficult.
It is hard, isn't it?
I think if you speak to certain team members now, I still struggle. depending on what it is, it's probably easier from a store perspective because there's 75 stores. So obviously I cannot be in every store. But I still struggle a little bit with, I'm sure the marketing and social team sort of, oh, here comes Grant again. Because I was probably leading that for a few years. So, look, it's part and parcel of running any bigger business that you've got to let go, you've got to delegate, you've got to trust other people. And then you would hope that they would do just as good a job as you would, you know what I mean? And sometimes they don't, sometimes you do, and sometimes they do a much better job. I'm like, oh, I should have hired that person years ago. What was I thinking? So yeah, look, to answer your question, yes, it's definitely been tough, especially in the early years. Now, 12 years on, it's probably a little bit easier when I see that it's a stalemate, it's not helping us grow. Okay, let's hire that person, put in that role, and they can do wonderful things as well.
Yeah, gotcha. And it's, I guess, what from a more goals seem to be an important recurring theme that you're touching on with goal setting, right? So with you, is your particular goal in mind continual growth on growth, or is it or is it sort of to get to the top of the mountain and hold, to go, okay, I've reached the summit, and just keep this ship sailing? What, because I always I see this a lot of the time. People, we have a very A-type personalities, very much big on always have to be doing more and more and more, work harder, hit bigger numbers, bigger sales, bigger targets. But no one ever talks about, well, what's that look like?
How many stores are we going for, Grant? Is there going to be 1,000 nutrition warehouses?
Again, back to bodybuilding. You don't go to the gym to get smaller, do you? It depends what your goals. Depends what your goals are, of course. Like, I didn't go to the gym every day to lift lighter weights or lose muscle mass. I went there every day to be a monstrosity, you know what I mean, in the bodybuilding world, and kick ass on stage. So, and I think obviously that has, pushed over into Nutrition Warehouse, and some years we're adding like 10, 15 stores, which, alone is a huge achievement. Because once we found out we can do 2 stores a year and they worked, and we've done 5 and we've done 10, and we thought, well, next year's 15. I think the most we've ever done in 1 year is 15. And it become a bit of a game internally. You know what I mean? Okay, let's open 20 next year. And how are we going to do that? You know, and so look, there is an end number, you know, on the board internally, which I'll keep private for our inner team. But
I'm going to guess. I think it's 100.
To give it a little bit of a hint, why stop at 100 if you can have 200? Why stop at 200 if you can have 300?
I remember that when I remember it was one of the I think it was the Christmas party. Ironically, probably the year after I just left Qatar. And we were talking there actually over some drinks and stuff, and you just hit. I think it was maybe it was the 65th or the 70th store, and we were going, oh, well done, mate. This is huge. Like, no one's ever done this before. And what's the next one? And you just, I just remember you looked around and just smiled and said, 100's next, mate. 100's next. And I went, this guy just doesn't stop. Like, it's incredible. And I just thought I'd already had in my mind your answer to my question. What does success look like for you? Obviously, it's to continue to grow and prosper. And I just really wanted to ask that, like, what does success look like in the mind of someone who's already gone so far in it? Because I think not many people have got a clear defined, what does success look like for them? Like, it's such a non-defined thing when a lot of people do startups, because we don't start.
It's just like out in the ethos, right? I'd like to be successful, but it's like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, definitely. You definitely need to write some numbers down, some goals. You know, like, hey, we want this much revenue. We want to, blah blah blah, this many customers. So yeah, I mean, like, and just to add to that, success for us is, and really has been, like, I really did love in those early days helping. And one of the first reasons I started my first store ever was to, people used to come to me all the time, Grant, how do I look like that? How do I get my chest like that? How do I get my arms like that? I just keep regurgitating it all the time. So, and that's where the business model comes from. Hey, I should open a store and people can come see me, sell them a bunch of supplements. I get paid. They're happy. So, our vision, so our mission for Nutrition Warehouse is quite simple: to help others achieve their own individual health and fitness goals. So it's not my goal. It's not Will or Stu's goal. It's what that person comes in the store. And I think a lot of the old bodybuilding shops used to go, I think everybody wanted to be jacked, you know what I mean? Not everybody wants to be jacked anymore, Everybody really just wants to be, most people want to be fit, healthy, and vibrant,
It seems obvious, but it's not, because so many stores, that's where you guys, I think, that's where I see what differentiated you guys from, like, back to my earlier question, what separated you. I think identifying early on when you said you had some competition that were going down with that particular model, where you're right, it always was. Some stores always had the reputation of being a big meathead behind the desk, eating his 6 meals there, and people would come in and just assume that they too wanted to be, 300-pound people as well. And you're right, by identifying that where it would go early on, that trend, I think, is probably what would attribute a lot of success to in the marketing strategy, I would think, because it's,
you even just look at the name, you look at something like Mass Nutrition, and it suggests, just the name itself suggests mass, right? It suggests you want to get huge. But then we look at something like Nutrition Warehouse, and it's like, okay, well, hey, I just want to get healthier. I want to get fitter. I'd like to improve my longevity, or, whatever it might be. You go, well, where am I going to go? Am I going to go to the Nutrition Warehouse, or am I going to go to, huge.com? Like, it's very, very interesting. Grant, I wanted to ask you, I think that a lot of people would assume that, your success has just been linear, and just always everything you do has been a tick and it's always worked. But I'm sure that throughout this process of growing to, 80 stores, there's been times when stores haven't worked and you've had to close them, or, and there's been little downward, trends and whatnot. How do you overcome those and keep tracking upwards? And I am right. I'm sure there are some downward trends. Right?
Everything I touch, mate. Everything I touch. Look, absolutely. Some stores haven't worked. I think, once you get to the scale of 75 stores, not every store is profitable. No, it's definitely not. You know what I mean? But majority are. There has been spots we've opened. I've gone, why did we open there for? There's been spots that we've opened. I'm not sure that's the best spot, and they've been the best stores ever. So when people say, how do you pick the locations? You know, we do have a system that we've stuck to for probably a decade. A lot of it is just pure luck, you know what I mean? And well, it's educated luck, I guess. You know what I mean? We're not just going put one here and
throw out. You got. I got a picture in your office, Grant. You've got a map and a dart, and you just go, there we go. There's store number 99.
Yeah. So look, yeah, it's looking at those stores and evaluating why they're not working. You know what I mean? Is it the position, the location, competition, the team in there, and trying to find the underlying issue. And sometimes we rectify them, sometimes we haven't. We've only closed a couple of stores, thankfully. We've normally able to pinpoint the issue or move the store to around the corner or a different location. But we have had ups and downs, definitely. You know what I mean? We've had, you know, containers turn up that have to be destroyed, and we've had, you know, products we've had to destroy because the taste is not right. There's a lot of moving parts within Nutrition Warehouse, as you can imagine. Not everything's perfect on a perfect day, but I think as long as we get 80% of it right every day, then that keeps adding up to where we are.
Something that interests me as well, Grant, is stock control. So, you know, I run a small operation where, you know, I've got a single retail outlet, soon to be 2. I do an online as well, so I've got a small warehouse. But stock control and you know, making sure that I'm moving stock before expiry and all that sort of thing, it's always a tricky tango to play with such a huge amount of stock and stores and space. How do you guys manage that? Or do you have a lot of like stock that, you know, you ends up getting discarded, or like how do you keep that churning over without, because a lot of people don't realize that supplements, it's perishable items, right? You know, essentially we're running a giant fruit shop. It's just that our fruit lasts for 2 years.
Yeah, look, obviously we'll have experience with that, but look, it's a lot of it. We have planograms obviously in each store, so obviously you can only carry so much stock in each store, which is obviously depending on the store's revenue, is obviously attributes to how much stock they can carry. Then it's up to the managers to adjust that accordingly if they feel that, you know, Will's selling more stock of, you know, his brand and in my store. It's fine.
I think it was a really interesting one, actually, because this is like when she asked, it is a really complex task. This is what interested me when I first came into it, and it was a lesson that I took away when I worked at the Newcastle store. There, I think I think the delegation of that ordering was really quite interesting to me. When did you let go of those reins out of curiosity, Grant, when with growing the store? Because I guess like all three of us having a hand in retail to varying extents know that is really quite hard. Like forecasting for stock, you know, like it's hard to predict how you're going to go week on week or month on month, and how much you'll need, how much you'll throw out. Like, so at what point did you sort of step back and go, okay, I'll give the managers the control to order discretionarily, or, you know, or was it you for the, you know, vast majority of the time, or was it, you know, have you always sort of delegated it to a store level?
I haven't been in charge of stock control for 10 years, I reckon.
So Grant, you don't even know how it goes in and out anymore.
Pretty much. I get a nice report that tells me, and I go, oh my God, how much should be right off? Yeah, I mean, obviously we've had a couple of key purchasing officers for years. And obviously Meadows been there for, you know, about 7-8 years now. So he's key to it all. And obviously with the planograms and the MSLs and making sure that we don't carry too much. And there's obviously systems in store to keep track of close expiring stock and to sell through those. So yeah, there's a whole system in the back end that obviously helps us and guides us, but it's not perfect. And yes, we do throw out thousands of dollars of stock. You know,
I'd like to know about, Grant, like, do you have one big disaster story for us where, you know, you like, say you ordered like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock and you know, the whole thing went rock hard, or no one purchased a single unit. Do you have a big disaster story that you can share with us?
Probably the funniest one internally, because I ordered it over coffee, was Define 8.
I remember Define 8.
Wow.
Wait, do you remember the story of Define 8? That's another story.
No.
Define 8 peach, I think it's peach mango. And I think and this is probably 5 years ago, so I'm still getting, I think some of Tony from the general manager keeps bringing it up every now and again if I make a bad decision. He's like, remember peach mango? So yeah, I think we ordered some stupid amount and got a good price for it. But do you think I actually tasted the peach mango before we purchased it? No. And did it sell? No. So we had, I'm pretty sure it was thousands, 5,000 plus units of this peach mango just sitting there, which people just walked around, and I think if a dog sniffed it, it'd probably run away the other way. So I'm not sure what happened to it at the end, but I think we had to just give it away. Buy this and please just take it.
Yeah. Well, I was somewhat involved in because I was part of the Aussie Supps company that you'll remember, so I was also somewhat involved in NDA and King Sports, and we had a number of those sort of issues with stock where hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock ended up needing to be discarded, and which was probably one of the major downfalls of those distribution companies in the end. But it's always interesting to hear the catastrophe stories. That's something that I always, it always kind of makes me laugh, because we've all seen it, being around this space, we've all kind of seen those disaster situations happen.
I think it just makes it relatable to an extent, because I think we do often get the overnight success look, and people probably meet you now, when we crossed paths 3-4 years ago, you go, already at the pinnacle of the industry sort of thing, and you have this tendency to go, oh wow, they've always had it. They've always been successful. They've always done it. They've always been in this position. But yeah, and I think that almost, once again, creates that false impression for people in startups who might get disillusioned when they first start out of business and realize it's huge amounts of hours, not getting a wage for a very, very long time, forfeiting weekends, holidays, lots of stability, relationships, all sorts of things get fed into these, projects that we create. And you've got, you pay your dues, and eventually, you sort of plant the seed and sit in the shade later on. But that's really relevant. I think that's really good, Stu. Like, there are disasters. There were times we went backwards, because from the outside in, otherwise everyone's just going to go, dude, this man he just can't fuck up. He just keeps winning. So you need
I know it. I've fucked up before, don't worry. A few times. Thank you, ask.
Yeah. Grant, I'm really interested to hear about you're obviously a family man. Work-life balance, it might be a little bit easier for you now because, like you said, you've given yourself a little bit more breathing room and a little bit more relaxation time. But how have you managed that over the years? How have you managed that work-life balance? Because that's something that Will and I, in relatively new businesses, struggle with. We're both family men. We both have kids and partners. How did you manage that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I probably didn't until the last few years. I mean, definitely Nutrition Warehouse, I'm probably driving it hard for the first probably 8 years, definitely, and probably 9 years until Max come along, who's now 3, little Maxie. So yeah, I think when I had my second child, I was like, maybe time to take the foot off the accelerator a little bit in terms of being at work and so long and be engaged in one focus. So definitely, and probably Lara, probably my fiance, going, stop working so hard, get off that phone. Okay. I get it. After 3 years, I get it. So yeah, definitely probably, it was probably something I made a mental change myself. I mean, when, okay, well, I need to let everyone else do their job, not try and annoy my co-workers by saying, let's do this, this, and this. And it's just stepping back a little bit. So these days, although I'm still very active in the business, I'm trying to step back away a little bit in terms of, I get there at 9 o'clock. I normally do a school drop-off, get there at 9 o'clock in the morning, work to roughly 4 o'clock, and I hit the gym. And then I get home early enough, around 5:30 to see the kids and spend time with the kids and the family. Where in the past, I would be gone at 7, 8 in the morning and I wouldn't get home until like 8 o'clock at night. So I've sort of changed that, and I'm trying to have. I've said to myself, okay, well, maybe it's time to step back and start having every Friday off, just work 4 days a week. But I keep sort of like, on Fridays, my car's just driving me to work. I'm like, why am I going to work? But I'm still passionate about it. I still love it. It's like I had a love for bodybuilding. Now I have a love for building this brand. And, it's the team there. We all have fun. Part of our core values of, have fun, enjoy the journey. I don't want to build this big corporate business where we're all like marketing like robots and not enjoying it and not happy. We enjoy ourselves at work. I expect that, laugh. When it's time to work hard, we do it. But when it's time to, let loose a bit, have a bit of fun, then, it's life really. I don't want to get to the end and go, hey, we opened up 1 million stores, but it wasn't fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got no fiance left. I've got my, my kids hate my guts. Yeah,
correct. Yeah. So I think as you, as you get older, and mature, and your mindset changes to sort of go, okay, well, what's really important now? And also, bodybuilding was important, not now. Health and fitness is, building the business is important, still is. But hey, I've got enough, valuable team members there to step away and enjoy time with my family.
Yeah, 100%. I think you made a really interesting point there about, scheduling and making sure that you've allocated time for when you're going to be at work and when you're going to be at home. And that's something that, Will and I were having a chat the other day that I've found is the only way that I can work it, because I'm kind of doing, I think, what you were doing to some extent, where I'm here at usually 7 in the morning and I try and get home for about 7 at time story to my little 3-year-old, but it's really not working. So I'm trying to change the way that I'm doing things, and yeah, I think it comes down to scheduling and allowing and allocating time.
It's so hard though, because you feel guilty when you take your foot off the gas to an extent, and I can imagine that be when you're saying like, now, Grant, should I work 4 days a week instead of 5? And like, any other, someone sitting from the outside looking in, if you're in a regular job where you're employed by someone else, if someone said, okay, here's your 4-day roster, you'd be like, oh, beautiful, thanks, boss, awesome. Yeah, but when you do it for yourself though, there's this constant niggling going, I'm letting the team down. I'm not pushing as hard today. I'm having a day off. I'm falling behind the rest. And phones, I think, have been a really big part of that. When you said put your phone down, I think like that evolution would have been massive from when you started. Mobile phones wouldn't have been as massive back in 2008. They were 3315s and little flip phones and stuff. Yeah, through to now where we can literally do everything and run a whole business off a smartphone, to positive and detriment. It's really hard to switch off. A lot of people, you take it home now more so than ever, and people can reach you at any time of the night. People can DM you, they can email, text, call. It's no longer standard business hours. So it's really valuable that you do have to consciously make time. I think, hey, I'm not doing it too successfully at the moment, but I acknowledge that it's a valuable lesson.
I think as you get older too, time just seems to go faster and faster. Obviously taking on, and that becomes responsibilities. Obviously, when I was in my 20s bodybuilding, it was just training, eating, sleeping, and time just seemed to, you're waiting for that comp to turn up. It seemed like it was, another 9 weeks of dieting, Now it just seems to fly, and that's, and my mum's always taught me that the older you get, the faster it goes. And she's right, obviously, how do you stop it? I think you just stop doing everything and just wake up in the morning and, have a coffee out the back and stay there all day. Probably go pretty slow then, but.
Grant, we won't keep you for too much longer, mate, because I know you're a very busy man and you've always got a lot on, but I did want to ask you something that we ask most of our guests, and I get them to give us their top 5 favorite supplements at the moment. That it can be either supplements that you're using or just supplements that might have hit the market that you're loving right now. Give us your top 5 favorite supplements at the moment and the reasons why.
It's a very good question. To be honest, I still take supplements, but I'm mostly a vitamin mineral man, these guys. Obviously my goal is not to build copious amounts of muscle. It's to survive the next 50 years. I take a collagen protein. I know, soft, soft.
No, I think it's
look like this, mate. Look.
I've been using a collagen protein myself, and I don't mind it. So, I think it's good. To me, though, you just miss out on that creaminess that you get from a whey. So, as far as like the enjoyment of the actual drink is not as much of a positive for me, but I do love the fact that there's no gas, no bloating, no farting, all that sort of thing. It is a really positive experience for digestion anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's more digestion for me. I take a adrenal product before bed, definitely, or ZMA, depending on how I'm feeling. Definitely, I think sleep's imperative to performance the next day, and the sleep agents out there. My go-to choice is adrenals. Any sort of adrenal product is really great, for me, or ZMA even knocks me out, or together. I'm really strung out. What else do I take? Look, I definitely a pre-workout, but I'm not a massive fan of a high-stim pre-workout because I'm training at 4 o'clock, like 4:30, 4 o'clock. I normally take half a dose or something. And I don't say weak these days. Oh, it might be old days. Hardcore. Now I'm softcore.
It's like, where's the giant Grant Mayo gone who would have been like, I normally dump 4 scoops of pre-workout.
I don't know if I'm saying, I'm so soft. But so collagen, adrenal, definitely a pre-workout or some form of stimulant. Just I prefer something that actually gives me some better focus and mood elevation than I would edit. Something that actually makes me, after a hard day at work, sometimes you just want to, if I find to have something with, and look, I'm not a formulation expert like you guys, so something that actually gives me a better mood. So some
of those nootropic ingredients and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So something like that just makes me feel better when I'm in the gym. And how many is that for? One more.
Yeah, one more. Do you do any anti-aging stuff, Grant? Are you into the NMNs or NADs?
Are you putting a
well, I mean, you look like you're 21, mate. So I just assumed.
Any aging? Well, I guess I do a lot of the. I just recently read the book by the Bulletproof guy. Can't think of his name now.
Yep. It's lost me as well. How did you find the book?
Dave Asprey.
Yeah, I've started reading that.
Superhuman, yeah. So look, I'm definitely into a lot more, the vitamins and minerals now, and looking at different options. Obviously, look, as I get older in age, I want to look after myself, be, useful for my kids and alive. It's probably the key driver. And that guy wants to live to 100 plus, So, if I think I can get to 100, it's probably my new goal.
I've got a book recommendation for you, Grant. It's called Lifespan: Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to. Yeah. Read that one. It's by Dr. David Sinclair. Fantastic book.
Actually, I did get sent some because you can't buy them here because PGA. It's the what's the powder that he takes?
NMN.
Yes, I actually just got sent to me some about 2 weeks ago. It's only a low dose. I didn't actually inquire after starting to read some of his literature. And I went to the local chemist here and it was like $1 million for a little bag. No sale. I actually think it was like $10,000 for a kilo or something.
Yeah, it's very, very expensive compound.
Yeah.
I've worked with it a little bit, just on the download. But great, fantastic stuff though. Really, really good stuff. So, but definitely worth reading that book because it's not just about the NMN. It goes into a lot of different things, some lifestyle changes that you can make, dietary recommendations, all about longevity. I mean, the guy's been researching lifespan and longevity since the late 80s. So he's pretty much he's a professor at Harvard Medical, and just a great book, Lifespan: Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to.
I appreciate that. I actually have watched a few videos and that on that, Stu, but I will grab that book definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I think...
Are you saying I need it, Stu? You're saying I need it?
No, I'm just saying, look, take it how you will.
Beautiful. Well, look, I think we've had an hour of your time, and I think that's very generous considering how much has to be done to keep those 350 staff in line today, mate. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing some of those pearls of business wisdom with us. I think our listeners will get a lot of value out of hearing the there was a lot of good content there, a lot of good value, a lot of different lessons and different angles on how to help grow a business, own a business, operate it, and once you've got it, how to survive it. So I really appreciate that insight there, Grant. Thank you very much for coming on today.
My pleasure, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolute
Thanks,
pleasure.
mate. See ya.